Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, which is also known as the state of New Mexico. And today's date is Tuesday, August 4th, 2015. Yeah, just to let you folks know, I'm still in the Albuquerque, Rio Rancho area of this great state. And believe it or not, it's greener than before. It's been raining pretty consistently. Not drastic, but it was pretty neat where I'm at. So I see people now cutting their own lawns, you know. Pretty interesting stuff. But hey, hopefully they stop spraying out there, you know. That's where you can get your climate change from, as far as I'm concerned. Well, I'm going to do a few short topics again. Probably be a little bit longer, 45 minutes to an hour, which is no big deal, which is fine. So, first thing I'm going to be talking about is CISPA. CISPA is back. And this is from FaxingBigBrother.com, which is Fight for the Future, believe it or not, who put this out. And it says here, urgent. The Senate is trying to ram CISA through within the next 48 hours. These undecided senators are the key to stopping it. We have to stop CISA to save our tech future from 24/7 surveillance and unchecked government power. We're organizing a last-ditch petition to the Senate. Sign this petition and tell them, vote no on CISA, or I will vote against you in the next election. So they tell you who to contact. There's a list them out here. List them out. Even some people I'm not even too fond of. All right, so you can see it for yourself. Everything I'm going to address will be on my Spreaker page on footnotes. Or you can call Congress now at 985-222-SICA. Okay? Once again, is 195-222-SICA. So, it will be 2472. Alright? So it's 195-222-2472. Okay? So hopefully get all that. And like I said, we'll be on. Everything I'm going to be addressed is going to be on my Spreaker page. And we'll just know what CISA is. Okay? And there's addition here. There's Operation Fax Big Brother. Congress is rushing toward a vote on CISA, the worst spying bill yet. CISA will grant sweeping legal immunity to giant companies like Facebook and Google, allowing them to do almost anything they want with your data. In exchange, they'll share even more of your personal information with the government. And all in the name of cybersecurity. CISA won't stop hackers. Congress is stuck in 1984 and doesn't understand modern technology. So this week, we're sending them thousands of faxes, technology that is hopefully old enough for them to understand. Stop CISA, send a fax now. And I've done my thing. I've done my duty on that. And we'll they do donations as well. Just to let you guys know. So here is what CISA is. CISA, the dirty deal between government and corporate giants. It is a dirty deal that lets much of government, from the NSA to local police, get your private data from your favorite websites and let them use it without due process. The government is proposing a massive bribe. They will give corporations immunity for breaking virtually any law if they do so, while providing the NSA, DHS, DEA, and local police surveillance access to everyone's data in exchange for getting away with crimes like fraud, money laundering, or illegal wiretapping. Specifically, it incentivizes companies to automatically and simultaneously transfer your data to the DHS, NSA, FBI, and local police with all of your personal identifying information by giving companies legal immunity. Yes, notwithstanding any law. And on top of that, you can't use the Freedom of Information Act to find out what has been shared. Ooh, talk about 1984, right? Yeah, government. Think for me, please. Alright, continue on. The NSA and the members of Congress want to pass a cybersecurity bill so badly They're using the recent hack of the Office of Personnel Management as justification for bringing CISA back up and rushing it through. In reality, the OPM hack just shows that the government has not been a good steward of sensitive data, and they need to institute real security measures to fix their problems. The truth is that CISA could not have prevented the OPM hack, and no senator could explain how it could have. Congress and the NSA are using irrational hysteria to turn the internet into a place where the government has overly bored, unchecked powers. Why faxes? Since 2012, online and civil liberties groups and 30,000 plus sites have driven more than 2.6 million emails and hundreds of thousands of calls, tweets, and more to Congress, opposing overly broad cybersecurity legislation. Congress has tried to pass CISA in one form or another 4 times, and they were beat back every time by people like you. It's clear to completely out of touch with modern technology. So this week, as Congress rushes towards a vote on CISA, we are going to send them thousands of faxes, a technology from the 1980s that's hopefully antiquated enough for them to understand. Sending a fax is super easy. You can use this page to send a fax. Any tweets with the hashtag #FaxingBigBrother will get turned into a fax to Congress too. So, what are you waiting for? Click here to send a fax now. Where do companies stand on CISA? Here's the ones that are silent and or support CISA. Definitely don't care about your privacy. Facebook, Google, AT&T, Comcast, Bank of America, Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Against CISA, actually care about your privacy. Automatic, which is World Press, Cheeseburger Inc., Craigslist, DuckDuckGo, Entertainment Consumers Association, Mozilla, New York Tech Meetup, Reddit, Servant, and Top Servers. And actually, DuckDuckGo is a pretty good website. They have pretty good, decent search engine that does the privacy. They don't record your IP address, just like Start Page. And other websites are coming out there too. Is goodgopher.com. So it's something to always check out. Okay, good stuff there. It's really I call it the encryption battle of encrypted technology is in progress. Okay, here's a frequent asked question. What is CISA? CISA stands for Security Information Sharing Act of 2015. And there's a link for that. So a lot of these are underlined. You can check it out for yourselves, all right? Wait, was there some other bill like that? Yep, you're probably thinking of CISPA, which was already soundly rejected in Congress 3 times after overwhelming public outcry. Here's a good comparison of the various bills at play, and you can look at that as well. Why are they trying again? Keeping the government information secure has come back. It's evolved because some of high-profile exploitations of bad government and corporate media data practices. While companies have been hacked, like Target, the most profound breach we know was about this year's hack of the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. This is an agency that holds records on federal employees and security clearances. That means the most sensitive information about people, filling some of the most sensitive positions in the federal government, along with tens of millions of others, have been compromised. Because of all this, Congress believes it must do something, including the wrong thing. How does CISA improve cybersecurity? It doesn't. Just ask the experts. Everything's underlined, and there's a link for it. In fact, it appears that Congress didn't bother consulting with anyone who knew about cybersecurity when drafting this bill. So what do they want to do? Assume they know better than you. Ha ha ha. Alright, so continue on. That doesn't mean there isn't work to do. While OPM's hack is still being investigated, this attack and almost every other we know about points to much different culprit. Incompetence, for instance, using the password as a password. Then, what is CISA really about? It allows companies to share your information with the government and grants sweeping immunity for companies that do, and most relevantly requires automated sharing with. In CISA, all we have to worry about, if only by our previous victories before set this cybersecurity charade, backs miles. That is, until the government's OPM's incompetence made this front page issue again. If you want to see the other zombie cyber sharing bills shuffling through Congress, you can read this. There's a link for that. Alright, then how do we stop all this? By all accounts, CISA is the biggest bully on the playground, and we must knock it down. That's why we're focusing on it first. Our allies on the Hill have made it clear that the biggest problem is politicians feel they need to do something. And right now, that means they're even willing to vote for a bad bill with terrible consequences. It sounds like the Patriot Act, right? They need to hear from you to know this kind of bullshit isn't acceptable. They said it, not me. All right? You hear from us again for the next flight. Until then, make sure your senators, your representatives, and your president know you don't support CISA or government spying. And please share this page to spread the word. You can hit Facebook and Twitter. Okay, you can share those over there. Use Google Plus as well. That will be fine. Yes, I do have to say, I do oppose CISA. I am anti-Big Brother and very damn proud of it. Well, you know, they got to try to use the whole 9/11 debacle again. Remember, 9/11 is an excuse for everything that happens right now. So definitely go out there, take the initiative. The links are on there. You can look at the bill yourself. It is irrelevant, unacceptable, null and void. It violates our 4th and 9th Amendments, 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution, and even the 10th as well. You can add it to it also. On the Bill of Rights. What does Bill of Rights mean? Government keep out. So please, folks, I beseech you to check this out, share this, download it, put this out there to many people as possible. Don't complain. Take action. It speaks louder than words. Okay? All right. Next one here came from VoxWorld.com, which one of my colleagues from Facebook, Al Suarez, I put this out, and I thank him for that. And it came out yesterday, and it says here, Americans have forgotten what we did to North Korea. It was updated by Max Fisher on August 3rd. And it has a picture of a US B-26 bomber drops a bomb on the North Korean city of Ulsan in 1951. And as it reads here, perhaps no country on earth is more misunderstood by Americans than North Korea. Though the country's leaders are typically portrayed as buffoonish, even silly, in fact, they are deadly serious in their cruelty and skill at retaining power. Though the country is seen as Soviet-style communist, in fact, is better understood as a holdover of Japanese fascism. And there is another misconception, one that Americans might not know want to hear, but that is important for understanding the Hermit Kingdom. Yes, much of its anti-Americanism is cynically manufactured as a propaganda tool, and yes, it is often based on lies. But no, it is not all lies. The U.S. did, in fact, do something terrible, even evil to North Korea, and while that act does not explain, much less forgiveness, North Korea's many abuses, since it is not totally irrelevant either. Two wrongs will make a right. That act was this. In the early 1950s, during the Korean War, the U.S. dropped more bombs on North Korea than it had dropped in the entire Pacific theater during World War II. This carpet bombing, which includes 32,000 tons of napalm, often deliberately targeted civilians as well as military targets, devastating the country far beyond what was necessary to fight the war. Whole cities were destroyed, with many thousands of innocent civilians killed, and many more left homeless and hungry. For Americans, the journalist Blaine Harden has written, this bombing was perhaps the most forgotten part of a forgotten war, even though it was almost certainly a major war crime. Yet it shows that North Korea's hatred of America is still not all manufactured. He wrote, it is rooted in fact-based narrative, one that North Korea obsessively remembers and the United States blithely forgets. And the U.S., as Harding recounted in the column earlier this year, knew exactly what it was doing. Over a period of 3 years or so, we killed off, 20% of the population. Air Force General Curtis LeMay, head of the Strategic Air Command during the Korean War, told the Office of the Air Force History in 1984. Dean Rusk, a supporter of the war and later Secretary of State, said the United States bombed everything that moved in North Korea. Every brick standing on top of another. After running low on urban targets, U.S. bombers destroyed hydroelectric and irrigation dams in the later stages of the war, flooding farmland and destroying crops. Historians dispute just how important this bombing really was making in North Korea, the country that it is today. Some say it was formative in shaping the young nation's history. Others that North Korea was already on its way to becoming the Hermit Kingdom, and that its leaders merely exploited the bombing to get there. As the North Korea scholar B.R. Myers pointed out, the cleanest race, perhaps definitive study of the North Korean worldview, anti-American propaganda was already in full swing before the bombing began. Since then, it has not focused as much on the American bombing, which Myers, like most scholars, considers a war crime, as you might expect. As might be expected, the Korean War occupies a central place in anti-American propaganda, but the propaganda dwells less on the U.S. Air Force's extensive bombing campaign, which is hard to reconcile with the myth of the protective leader, than on village massacres and other isolated outrages. Yet, if the bombing did not cause North Korea's obsessive hatred of America and Americans, it did help to focus it. The effects of the bombing were felt nearly universally, suffering it caused among the first shared experiences for North Koreans. Unlike the propaganda, which only recounted supposed American crimes, here was a real American crime that everyone could see for themselves, and indeed had likely affected them personally. How could it not be formative? American bombing, to be clear, did not transform North Korea from a nice country into a bad one. The seeds of the country's generations-long fascist rule had already taken root by the early 1950s. And indeed, it is worth remembering that the North has launched the war in the first place, but that bombing did not end up abetting, however unintentionally, the Kim family project from creating a paranoid, volatile, and oppressive bunker state. You can see this, for example, in Pyongyang, the North Korean capital, which was all razed by American bombing, as Myers points out. The destruction of the original city by the American bomb has enabled the regime to redesign it from scratch as a grand and enduring work of propaganda in its own right. And there are photos of that capital before and after, and it is very horrendous. Okay, 75% of the city was destroyed by U.S. bombing. It says here at the bottom in 1953, at the top in 1964, after Reconstruction. So it is interesting there. So the symbolism of this is haunting. The U.S. in its ruthless destruction made it easier for the North Korean leaders to rebuild their shattered city into physical embodiment of Orwellian dystopia. The blame for the North Korean project still rests fully with those leaders who knew exactly what they were doing. But it is a reminder that the United States once lent those leaders a helping hand in converting their nation to a fascist holdover. In that rare moment when we do talk about the U.S. bombing of North Korea, it can be easy to get lost in debating in its long-term political consequences. But the bombing primarily mattered at the time, and it still matters today, not because it was politically counterproductive, but because it was horrific and unjust. You can glimpse both of the humanitarian and political consequences in an alarmed diplomatic cable that North Korea's foreign minister sent to the United Nations, which would nominally leading the war effort in January 1951. Scholar Adam Cathcart dug up the cables a few days ago, which is what got me thinking again about the bombing that America has largely forgotten. Here are some excerpts from the cable haunting to read today. January 3rd at 10:30 p.m. An armade of 82 flying fortresses loosed in their death-dealing load on the city of Pyongyang. Hundreds of tons of bombs and incendiary compound were simultaneously dropped throughout the city, causing annihilating fire. In order to prevent the extinction of these fires, the transatlantic barbarians bombed the city with delayed action. High explosive bombs which exploded at intervals throughout for a whole day, making it impossible for the people to come out onto the streets. The entire city has now been burning, enveloped in flames for 2 days. By the second day, 7,812 civilians' houses have been burnt down. The Americans were well aware that there were no military objectives left in Pyongyang. Number of inhabitants of Pyongyang killed by bomb splinters, burnt alive and suffocated by smoke and incalculable, since no computation is possible. Some 50,000 inhabitants remained in the city, which before the war had a population of 500,000. Even in the English translation from the original Russian, the siege of North Korea is now famously vituperative and conspiratorial rhetoric are easy to see. There is an odd reference to Wall Street bosses supposedly driving the war. But while today's North Korea in anti-American rhetoric is so often filled with obvious distortions and lies, and thus easy to dismiss, this piece of anti-American rhetoric is chillingly real. That makes the cable jarring to read even beyond the sheer, awful suffering it describes. It was a moment when the official North Korean characterization of America, one that we today rightly consider propagandistic nonsense, had a lot of truth to it. This is a real shame and downright unacceptable. Doesn't matter what side you're on. I'm always going to give homage to the people that served in Korea. My grandfather, step-grandfather, served in it, both Army and Navy, and may his soul be forever free as well. And technically, the whole thing, too, was an illegal war. And, of course, they had a little thing with Japan, and you're still going to try to police them and so forth after World War II, and look what happened. You got a big division. I could be mistaken, but the whole 32nd parallel. Like I say, this is why I am against the whole warmongering machine, the military-industrial complex, and the empire, and of course, the New World Order. It's just my own personal views. I condemn this with a passion. All forms of war. It really gets my goat when people are, oh, we gotta go attack our country. Yeah, I want to see you on the front line then, chump. See how tough you really are. Even those Dinkelberry politicians in Washington and other countries do the same thing, have that warmongering fetish. You know what, you throw them on the front line, let's see how long they can last. And this is just the real dark side of world history. Just another example. Even with the bombing of Japan, the 2A bombs, the atomic bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was when you hear everything, it was a real shame. It's disturbing. It's that wins the war. And people say, oh, but you don't blame one thing. So no, you gotta blame everyone that is responsible for creating conflict. Both sides. Because even Japan was responsible for a lot of things they done to the people around Asia, China, Singapore, and all that. They couldn't handle Vietnam because Vietnam told them when to stick it, and they did. They're very resisting individuals in Vietnam. But this is, like I said, this is, so stuff comes up, you have to always see everything across the board. Doesn't matter what side you're on. You have to find what's the motive and the purpose. And this is why I despise all kinds of wars. Only time it's legal when it's really necessary. But all this isn't, is irrelevant, null and void, and I boldly condemn this with a passion. Alright, next one, my friends, came from Anti-Media, came out yesterday. It says here, man arrested, charged with multiple felonies for telling jurors about their rights. Oh my goodness. This is by Kerry Welder. As it reads here, last week a Denver man was arrested and charged with multiple felonies for stealing, committing fraud, or engaging in violent crime. He was targeted for attempting to educate jurors about their rights in the courtroom. Oh my goodness. Mark Iancelli, 56, sat at a table outside of Lindsay Flanagan Courthouse in Denver in order to educate jurors about jury nullification. Jury nullification is the process by which members of juries can nullify unjust laws by finding defendants charged with them not guilty. Iancelli is charged with tampering with the jury, a felony in Colorado that carries a minimum of $5,000 bond of $5,000. He was charged by the Denver District Attorney for 7 counts for tampering and since has bailed out of jail. Iancelli was in the second day of a planned 3-day outreach to educate jurors entering the courtroom about the power of jury nullification. He was handing out flyers when he was arrested. His goal was to inform potential jurors about a vital, century-old function of juries. The practice was used in America in 1735 to exonerate a man of libel charges after he printed unflattering statements about the governor of New York, a British colony at the time. Though he had undoubtedly printed them, the jury found him not guilty and set the precedent that members of juries could judge the morality and legitimacy of laws. United States First Chief Justice John Jay once told jurors, "You have a right to take upon yourself to judge both facts and law." Jurors would seize this right to nullify anti-sedition laws in the early 1800s and attempted to stifle free speech, criticizing the newly formed United States government. Judges first began cracking down on the right to nullify in the late 1800s. By that time, jurors had already used nullification to challenge the Fugitive Slave Act, which imposed heavy punishment of Northerners who aided escaped slaves from the South. Though judges came to discourage nullification, the practice went on to be usefully in nullifying Prohibition-era laws. Jury nullification still affects prohibition against outlawed drugs. In 2012, a New Hampshire jury acquitted Rastafari man Doug Darrell of growing marijuana. Though he was technically guilty of the violation, the juror had been informed of their right to nullify and found the laws and charges against Darrell to be unjust. They found him not guilty. However, this power of the people has not gone unchecked. Though some states allow for practice, judges often fail to notify jurors of their ability to nullify. Activists have been harassed and jailed for attempting to inform jurors of their right to judge the morality laws. The Fully Informed Jury Association, or ANCRM's FIJA, a non-for-profit organization that educates jurors on their rights and whose pamphlets Iancelli was handing out when he was arrested, is one group that attempts to counter these suppressions by the justice system. Kristen Tyan of FIJA reported on Iancelli's case that stating that officials in Denver claimed a juror had complained about Iancelli's presence near the courthouse, prompting his arrest. Tyan was told Iancelli was arrested on charges of jury tampering, which according to Colorado law consists of 1. A person's committing jury tampering with intent to influence the juror's vote, opinion, decision, or other action in the case. He attempts directly or indirectly to communicate with the juror other that is part in the proceedings in the trial of the case. 1.5. A person commits jury tampering if he knowingly participates in the fraudulent proceedings, processing, or selection of jurors or prospective jurors. 2. Jury tampering is a Class 5 felony, except that jury tampering is in any Class 1 felony trial is a Class 4 felony. Though Tyan acknowledged that under circumstances nullification is not legally permissible, it appears Iancelli was within his rights. He is due back in court on August 11th to face his victimless felony charges. It is more than alarming that a man attempting to facilitate and strengthen the judicial process is punished with the full of the law. The very thing Ian Selly. I always say Lancet. Ian Selly sought to educate jurors about, as Harlan F. Stone, the 12th Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, said in 1941, the law itself is on trial quite as much as the cause which is to be decided. When the jury system refuses to allow jurors to be aware of their rights, let alone exercise them, the country's entire system, law and order, is called into question. Absolutely. What happened to Mr. Ian Selly, or Mark Ian Selly, it is very inappropriate and unacceptable. Why? Because those laws they have in Colorado on certain things like jury tampering can be implemented poorly. There are no blackmails, there are no bribes whatsoever. It was just handing out information. Oh my goodness, let's run to the confounded hills because he did something which is a sin. That's right. So we're going to go to Justia, lawjustia.com, and learn about the Constitution from Colorado. And it says here about inherited inalienable rights, Article 2, Section 3. All persons have certain natural and essential inalienable rights, among which may be reckoning the right of enjoying and defending their lives and liberties, of acquiring, processing, and protecting property, and seeking and attaining safety and happiness. Equality of justice. I'll have to go through that. And let me see, the prosecution is totally irrelevant. Free speech. No law shall be passed impairing the freedom of speech. Every person shall be free to speak or write or publish he will on any subject, being responsible for all the abuse of that liberty, and all suits and prosecutions for libel, the truth thereof may be given in evidence. And the jury, under the direction of the court, shall determine the law and fact. Okay? And, of course, ex facto law, no ex post facto law, nor impairing the obligation of contracts or retrospective in its operation or making it irrevocable grant of special privileges, franchises, or immunities shall be passed by the General Assembly. Okay, that's fair enough there. And we gotta go a little further. I'm just looking for a couple of areas. Trial by jury, yes, we all got by that. All right, a trial by jury. And, of course, due process of law. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. All right. And let's check out Section 28, Article 2. The enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed or to deny, impair, disparage others retained by the people. So, technically, the whole jury tampering, how it was done, handling information in front of a courthouse, is illegal, null and void under those sections of Article 2 of the Colorado Constitution. So, you know what? The city of Denver, or let me see here. Shoot. Let's see here. Yeah, city of Denver and all that. You know, they chose poorly. Alright, so technically he has a right to handle information in front of potential jurors and so forth. You can do that on the sidewalk. It is legit. They cannot harass you. And I don't really give a damn what the judge or the prosecutor has to say. Okay? Good. They get offended? Too bad. I don't care. Don't mean a damn thing to me. Lindsay Flanagan Courthouse in Denver. That's it. Okay. So the prosecutor, the Denver County District Attorney. Yeah. So you know what? You're gonna hopefully you lose. You'd be humiliated. All right. Just let justice be done, and or the heavens fall. That's absolutely so. So I gotta put this back right there. Yeah, I made a little mistake there, which is okay. It happens to the best of us, you know. So right now, let's just go over here, and it says this is probably the most important news. It actually came from Economic Collapse, the coming economic collapse, done by Michael Snyder. Most important news, and it says here. Crashing right now, Apple, Twitter, oil, commodities, Greek stocks, and Chinese stocks. As it says here, the month of August sure has started off with a bang. Tech stocks are crashing, oil is crashing, industrial commodities are crashing. Greek stocks crashed the moment as the Greek stock markets reopened for trading, and Chinese stocks continue to crash. At this point, we have not seen a broad crash of U.S. stocks yet. But it's important to note that the Dow is already down more than 700 points from the peak in May. If it continues to slide like it has in recent days, it won't be too long before we officially reach correction territory. Just a few days ago, I described in August a pivotal month, and so far, that is indeed turning out to be that case. A full-blown crisis has not erupted yet, but we are all well on the way. In this article, I want to look at a few of the crashes that already happened. Apple, this is more of a correction than a crash, but it is very noteworthy because it is happening to one of the most important stocks of all. The price of Apple stock has already broken through the 200-day moving average at this point, nearly 11% from its peak. Share of Apple are down 10.9% from the highest point in the year, which places the stock squarely in what's considered to be a correction. The unofficial definition of a correction is a 10% greater drop from a recent high. Shares of Apple hit a 52-week and all-time high on $134.54 on April 28th. I know it should be a lot higher than that too, so wow. Twitter, if you want to see a real crash, just look what's happening to Twitter. The stock was down close to 6% on Monday and overall has fallen 58% since early last year. The price of Twitter stock has never been lower than it is right now. Many investors are very apprehensive about what comes next. Twitter's share hit a record low on Monday, closing to nearly 6% to $29.27 per share. That's a 58% below their peak in January 2014. Shares have fallen to the lowest point since the company went public in November 2014, weighed down by negative comments on growth from company executives that rattled investors. The previous low was $30.50 in May 2014 as concerns over slowing user growth began to take a toll. Of course, there are tech companies that are far worse shaped than Twitter. For example, just consider what's happening to Yelp. Shares of Yelp recently plummeted 25% in a single day. They are down about 70% over the past year. Greece. The Greek government was quite eager to reopen their stock market this week. Perhaps they should have waited longer. On Monday, we witnessed the greatest stock bloodbath in Greek history. The following comes from Reuters. Greece stock market closed with heavy loss on Monday after a 5-week shutdown brought on by fears that the country was about to be dumped from the Eurozone. Bank shares plummeted 30% before lows kicked in to stop investors selling anymore. Main Athens stocks index ATG ended down at 16.2%, recovering slightly after plunging nearly 23% at the open. It was the worst daily performance since at least 1985, with modern records began, including a 50% fall when Wall Street crashed in 1987. Puerto Rico. Things continue to unravel for America's Greece. On Monday, the U.S. Commonwealth Territory defaulted on debt for the first time ever. The Puerto Rico's Government Development Bank announced Monday that it was only able to make a partial payment on its public finance corporation debt service due over the weekend. In a response to the non-payment of the full service, Moody said it was viewed the situation as a default. Due to the lack of appropriated funds for this fiscal year, the entirety of the PFC payment was made today. the first business day after the Saturday deadline. GDP President Melba Acosta Fibo said in a statement, this was a decision that reflects the serious concerns about the Commonwealth's liquidity in combination with the balance of obligations to our creditors and equally important obligations to the people of Puerto Rico to ensure the essential services they deserve are maintained. And of course here, China, as I noted the other day, the Shanghai Composite Index declined 13.4% during the month of July. It was the worst month for stocks in China since October 2009. On Monday, China stocks were down another 1.1% since closing at 5,166.35. On June 12th, the Shanghai Composite Index has fallen perspicuously. As I write this, it is sitting just 3622.86. Oil in the month prior to the financial crisis of 2008, the price of oil crashed hard. Now it is happening again. In July, the price of oil plunged 21%. That was worst monthly decline that we have seen since October 2008. And on the oil crash continued. The following comes from Business Insider. On Monday in New York, West Texas Intermediate crude fell more than 4% and slipped below $45 a barrel, a level that hasn't touched since March. Brent crude oil of the international benchmark that joined WTI in a bear market last week dropped more than 4% below $50 per barrel for the first time since January. Commodities. In recent weeks, I've been writing over and over about industrial commodities, this is yet another striking similarity to the last financial crisis. In 2008, they started crashing before stocks did, and now it is happening again. We see the Bloomberg Commodities Index at a 13-year low. Copper is down 28% for the year, tin is down 30%, and nickel is down 44%. This is a giant red flag, indicates that we are plunging into a deflationary cycle. When a global economic activity slows down, so does the demand for industrial commodities. I don't understand why more people can't see this. I have been warning that the deflationary downturn was coming for a very long time, and so have others. For instance, just consider the following excerpt from a recent article by Nicole Foss. Our consistent theme here at the Automatic Earth since its inception has been that we are facing a very powerful deflationary depression, following from the bursting of an epic financial bubble. And what we have witnessed in our 3 decades of expansion and inflation is nothing short of a monetary supernova, and that period has been the just culmination of a much larger upward trend going back many decades at least. We have lived through a credit hyper-expansion for the record books, with an unprecedented generation of excess claims to underlying real wealth. In doing so, we have created the largest financial departure from reality in human history. Bubbles are not new. Humanity has experienced them periodically, going all the way to the antiquity. But the novel aspect of this one, apart from its scale, is occurrence at a point when we have reached or are reaching so many limits on a global scale. The retriment we are about to experience as the bubble bursts is also set to be unprecedented, given that a scale of a bust is predictably proportionate to the scale of the access during the boom that precedes it. We have built an incredibly complex economic system, but despite its robust appearance, it is overextended, brittle, and fragile after decades of fueling its continued expansion by feeding on its own substance. Things continue to line up in textbook fashion for a major financial crisis during the fall and winter. I hope that you're prepared for what comes next. This was originally published on the Economic Collapse blog. Yes, my friends, you have to always pay attention. And you can't blame one form of economics whatsoever. If you study how the Great Depression came about on the world, it's just an example. Study the past. It's today's greatest teacher. That's why I question a lot of these big central banks. They want to put money out of thin air. Well, remember, the fact is, the next administration and they took out the gold standard, commodity standard, the gold standard, to make it fiat. Fiat means how long can it last? No, there's no financial backing on it, commodity backing on it whatsoever. So it could just print out thin air. It can inflate. It is scary. It happened in the 20s with Germany. Look up Fall of the Reichsmark. I know I said it plenty of times. But hopefully everyone out there is prepared. We can still, when we're aware, we can work together without having these big banks and big government tell us what to do. Yeah, we'll feel the effect, but it won't be out of fear. We got to prepare ourselves the best we can. It's not just the United States, but around the world. Because the monies that's being exchanged in the currency exchange groups, are very similar. A lot of them are all fiat. No commodity backing whatsoever. So we just got to keep our eyes and ears open, pay attention. This is just an excuse for the New World Order to be the so-called saviors and try to manipulate us and sell us their garbage from the Ed Bernays' playbook. Alright? So please always be informed. Alright, one more thing here will be short and sweet. Lewin H. Rockwell Jr., Lou Rockwell to be exact, and he did a little comment on his website. It says, Planned Parenthood defunding trick. And here's what he wrote. Forgive me for shocking you, but Mitch McConnell's Planned Parenthood defunding was a fraud from the beginning. No government spending, no government program, let alone so close to the demonic heart, is ever to be cut. So while the Cruz-Lee amendment could have passed with 51 votes, it was blocked by Mitch for one that needed 60 votes, which he knew were not there. O and NB. The McConnell bill did not cut funding. It just shifted to the women's health. What can I say? Same deal, but a different package. When it comes to government, my friends, you never trust them. I'm not going government bashing or hating government, but I hate tyranny. I hate corruption. I hate when you have a bunch of con men that think they're smarter than everybody else, and we're just a bunch of morons. If that's the case, you go after McConnell. Use his place like an outhouse. Go to his town meetings if he has the courage to attend them. And start blasting this man. Nothing more than a neocon piece of garbage. Yes, another corporate bend-over Bob. He's just a prime example. So you know what? Get him where it hurts. And if he hates it, too bad. Because the man is not more than a conniving crook. He's just like Obama. He's just like a Bush. And a lot of people in Congress as well. I'll be here all day giving examples. And I'm not here to digress. Alright. Well, that is it for now, my friends. Thanks for listening to this episode. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media network. If you got any questions, comments, recommendations, love letters, hate letters, criticisms, compliments, etc., including sending me information, please use it with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, and send your comments to iHeartRadio. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, which is all together, at gmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.